Hi everyone, a warm good afternoon to you all. I am your host Ankit Punani this side from ETHR World. I welcome you all to our webinar Learning Experience with Digital 4.0. Now to begin with, I would like to thank you all for taking out time and being here with us today. And I'm really excited to have you guys all over, excited about the conversation that we are going to have today. In fact, we have about two wonderful leaders in the e-learning space who will enlighten us about the innovative e-learning solutions for the BFSI industry per se. Uh, Today, we are going to dive a little deeper into whys and hows of how things e-learning for the sector will our panelist, Mr. Prasoon Nigam, who happens to be the Chief Technology Officer as well as the co-founder of digital learning solutions provider, StratBeans, and Mr. Michael, who happens to be the sales head at US-based Articulate, a global leader in online training solutions. Welcome and thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you guys both. Also, I would like to quickly introduce our special guest, Mr. Deodatta Kurane, Group President, Human Capital Management at Yes Bank. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Kurane.
Welcome. My pleasure to be there on this panel.
Glad, sir. So before you all start taking notes, we'll be running a brief Q&A at the end of the webinar. So we've enabled a special Q&A session post the webinar gets over, the specific roundtable. It's exactly on the right-hand side of your screen. And in case you have any specific questions, just pop the questions right there. Now, without further ado, I'll just quickly hand over the floor to Mr. Kurane to begin.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here on this discussion. So, one of the points which was given for me to sort of talk about or elaborate is that what is the change that we need to bring in HR, in alignment with the people management practices, which are in tune with the changing business ecosystem. I'll just spend a little bit of time in this. So, if you ask me, frankly, when we always speak about people practices and we say that we have to make our workforce future ready. So I actually have a different proposition. I say that we have to make our people present ready. And actually, as has been forced on us by the lockdown and this unexpected pandemic situation, actually the future which we were talking about, working from home, remote working, matrix working, and bubble organization, all sorts of things which are all in the future have suddenly become the present. So actually, if we see, the whole pace of change has got accelerated, and actually the change is moving ahead of us, and we had better start running very fast to keep up with it. So that's why I use the term that we should become present ready. The other thing which I wanted to kind of point out is that earlier, if you see HR practice, any very you can say a conservative or traditional or a very academic view of HR practices, the theories which are available today, or even in the B schools, what is being taught, the classic kind of HR. Of course, I know that it is being supplemented with a lot of up-to-date research and state-of-the-art kind of ideas and concepts. But if we actually go and ask ourselves which is the textbook which is available on HR, we'll find that those are mostly the models, the practices, and the kind of classical theories. They all are way outdated. And if you ask me, that up to a certain point they were relevant, but if you actually go and examine it, I would say that theory is getting written alongside practice today. So the HR practitioner, actually, if he wants to keep his people management practices update, I think the whole paradigm of what is inside and what is outside needs to change. I'll just elaborate this. Earlier, if you read books on industrial revolution and those areas, they used to say that life mimics work. That means work was center stage, and somewhere life would mimic it, and your lifestyle, your entire structure outside, it used to mimic work. And if you want to see a living example of this, you go to any company town like you say Tata Nagar or some of these steel townships. You will find actually the physical manifestation of how life mimics work. But actually, the whole paradigm has shifted today, and it is work mimics life.
Hmm.
So the relevance to what we are talking about here, and because there was a alluded to e-learning and so on and so forth. If you ask me, the model is very simple. The theory books are out there. So if you want HR practices, go and model it on the lines of Amazon app, Swiggy app, Zomato app. If your internal systems and processes are as slick and as streamlined as any of these examples, your
Hmm.
employees will adapt them up. If they're not, if they're way behind, they're got 10 clicks instead of 2 clicks, they're not intuitive, the UI UX is pathetic, the employees will simply toss it out of the window. So if you ask me, if we want to change the mindset of people in any organization, I think in my view, HR has the biggest role as being the advocates of technology. So we have to prove that this technology works to our people, and then they in turn will become the torchbearers of technology being taken out to customers. And I don't think there is a better example of this than banking and BFSI, because today's the pace of digitalization which is happening and the processes which are going on digital mode, they're just growing by leaps and bounds. So we need to kind of right skill and properly position our workforce to accept these kind of changes. Last piece I would like to just point out at this juncture is we need to, as HR practitioners, we need to understand that in an organization there are different facets of technology, and I think it's important to understand it because either we could go for an overkill or an underkill. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean by this.
Hmm.
So for instance, if you take technology, there are very high-end stuff if you want to get into, say, AI, machine learning. But is all of it relevant to all the employees? The answer is no. So in my view, what we need to do is we need to segregate the employees into three very, very clear-cut categories. One, those who are the makers of technology. Most organizations are not makers of technology. It will be the tech companies, or it could be the tech departments of certain companies, including a bank. Second is those who are managers of technology. And with these who are managers of technology, I think the most important thing is that we have to open their eyes to the possibilities. They should be aware of what is available in the technology landscape and how it can be quickly adopted for their area. And finally, we are the bulk of the people are the users of technology who need to have working knowledge of the area in which they are going to be working on technology. Also, they should understand that what are the limitations and what are the opportunities. So people don't become kind of cast in stone that I will not look beyond this and things like that. So if you ask me, just to sum up this part, if we as HR people want to be the torchbearers of technology and change in our organizations, one of the most important things is to adopt technology in HCM in the first place. Show to employees that our technology offering to them is best in class. Convert them into the brand ambassadors of the tech revolution for your organization. Encourage them to use digital products of your own organization, and then uh, slice and dice your audience as per the makers, managers, and users of technology, so that you put in adequate efforts at the adequate places so that you get the optimum results. I think we can take up other topics as we go along.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mr. Karani. In fact, brilliantly put up, very interesting insights, especially when you say HR being the torch bearers and change agents in the organizations. Well, Mr. Nigam, I would like to turn to you to gain some insight on what Mr. Kirani rightly pointed out.
Oh yeah, so thanks. Firstly, thanks, Mr. Kurani. I think you kind of helped me with one of the point which I wanted to bring out, which was about this whole romanticism around being future ready. And like it is said that sometimes you are too much into future ready when you don't want to solve the present problems. So from that point of view, it's very correct that the approach has to be kind of first taking care of your present issues, and then kind of preparing yourself slowly, step by step, for the future issues. Like, any high speed change or high speed things operate, it has to be in a very staged way. If there's a rocket, you have to first stage it, count down, and then you shoot it up. So the rush, especially the fail fast culture, is quite against the digital transformation in L&D space that I've seen personally. The real approach has to be succeed slowly, and that is one of the things I've seen in successful transformation like these. Now, since the topic for today is around learning experience in digital transformation, and again, Mr. Kurane also talked about that the manager of technologies have to decide, what things they have to pick up. We are just tool providers. So from that point of view, I want to serve in this call all the people who are managing technology, managing HR functions. And my aim is to kind of give you a picture, or give you a context in which to think about learning experience. And very quickly, I'll put 3 points which has helped us in these learning experience journeys. One is that you have to set up a right mindset for yourself. So you have to know your present L&D issues that are there, present, with an eye at future, but present. And then you have to, step number 2, kind of look at all the routines that you're following, all the things that you feel and say that, learning happens this way. Oh, this is the classroom training. Oh, my people cannot have mobile devices outside. And like, COVID has shaken up the entire world. And now you are saying, oh, future is too early to us now. And the third part is that we have to respect the constraint of the yin yang between, the learning hours and the business delivery, and you have to kind of distribute nicely between them, because that can again imbalance. Because for all sitting here, I don't think any one of us want to convert our corporate into a university. So that kind of sensibility is important. And the third and the last part is that, you have to have mechanism in your learning experience system to progressively refine, look at the analytics, and then engage different engines. So like Dr. Kurane said that, you don't have to rush in all the things, just because they're so shiny pieces. So that is the thing. Now, coming over to the word experience, it is connotated by two attributes. So whenever you use the word experience economy or experience, there are two things. One is that the thing has to be memorable. And the second thing is it has to be personalized. Now, when it comes to learning, content is one of the things which plays an important role in creating memorable experiences, And we have, Michael from Articulate, and who better than him to talk about how some of the awesome technologies like Articulate are being used to create memorable and very good looking, very appealing e-learnings. And then later on, I'll come in and then talk about the LXP platform. So over to you, Michael.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just firstly, for those who have not heard of Articulate, we've been around for over 15 years. We create the most popular e-learning authoring apps and online training software in the world. We have over 100,000 organizations using our products to create amazing courses with award-winning apps like Storyline 360 and Rise 360. We also have the Articulate eLearning Heroes website. It's the #1 community for e-learning creators. You get access to free downloads, examples, a ton of quality content. It's very engaging. It's a very supportive community with over 800,000 e-learning professionals. So we call it the great place to find anything related to e-learning. I actually had some notes about what to talk about in terms of building effective training, but I think I might take it a different path, seeing some of the early discussion. What we're seeing at Articulate, we had to build technologies that went with the current technology. So, for example, 15 years ago, the big technology was Flash. Everyone built training on Flash. Flash is going away very soon. So we had to really improve our back-end technology. So we reworked and rebuilt our tools to support HTML5. And we had to ensure that when you built the training, it could run anywhere. It could run on a desktop, could run on a tablet, could run on a mobile. We're seeing all around the world, especially now, that training has become very relevant. Organizations need to move quickly. Not necessarily everyone has access to a desktop or a tablet, but they generally have access to a phone. So the training needs to look good, needs to be very functional, needs to work everywhere. So our tools are designed that way. They're designed from the ground up So it's always incorporating the latest technologies. And we're very fortunate. We've got, a lot of professionals that use our products, but we've also got a lot of newbies. And that's what we've seen, especially this year in the COVID world. We've seen a lot of organizations that had to fast track their digital learning and, get tools that they could build training. So people coming to us that have no experience building e-learning come to us and have tasks where they have to move their training from face-to-face, traditional type training to, more an online presence. And luckily for us, we've got the tools for them. So I mentioned Rise 360. Rise 360 is part of our Articulate 360 suite. Great thing about Rise 360, it's really easy to use. You don't need to be technically minded. Essentially, you're inserting what we call blocks, and there could be visual blocks like images or text, quizzes, things of that nature. And essentially, you're building by dropping and clicking and adding your own text and content in these pre-built forms that we have. So it's really easy to use, and the courses that are built run amazingly on virtually every device. So it really caters for anytime learning. I might turn it back. So I think we'll get back into this further down the webinar, but I'll turn it back over.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for talking about Articulate and the kind of technologies that are within Articulate. Now let me go ahead and talk about the LXP platform. So all the content finally has to be hosted on this experience platform. It's like the combination. So let me go ahead and present a few things which will so let me just check, is my screen visible now, or maybe is my screen visible? Okay, sorry, I think this.
Not yet, Rasool.
All right, no problem, no problem.
Yes, it is. It is now.
Awesome, thanks a lot. So, okay. Now my aim is to put in context for you all there, managers of technology and HR leaders, the LXP part. So my idea is not to talk so much from a product angle, but to really put it in context. Why would you require it, if at all? Yeah. So let's first demystify the word experience economy. I think we all must have heard about it, but just let me create a quick refresher on it. So the experience economy has been there since 1960s and that time, and entertainment industry has been the main flag bearer of that. And so if you go to Disneyland, for example, that's an example of a experience that you're made to be felt like a guest. It's not just about this kid going and doing a few swings and the roller coaster, buying a few candy from the shop, but you're greeted by this character Mickey Mouse and you take a snap, so that this kid goes back and throughout his life he has a recall. It's memorable for him and it's personalized for him. Similarly, I mean, gone are the days when we used to go to cinemas. But for people who can remember those days, PVR, we all used to go to PVR Gold Class. The movie remains same, but then you are served, all those popcorns and a personalized service and reclining chair, and we kind of like it. We love it, and the key point is the movie was same, even for the guy who didn't have the reclining seat. So that's the part of the experience, and entertainment industry has been doing it. Now, when digital transformation came in, one thing was that every company was trying to become like a tech company. That was one aspect which you guys must have heard, especially in BFSI. It used to be such a striking statement that banks are now tech companies, But another parallel revolution which has happened is that now every company is trying to also be like, quote unquote, a small entertainment company or experience company. But in the modern world, Airbnb has been, quite a, the classical case study for experience. Now, so if you go to their premise was that suppose you go to a hotel, let's say a regular hotel, a Radisson or whatever you may, and you stay in, let's say, Paris. So you get all the ambience of that hotel, then you book a tour and they take you across. That's an experience. But how about you live with a family, let's say a family who belongs to France, and they take you out, you stay in their homes, nice and clean and hygienically, everything good. And then they take you around, show you around Paris, show you places. And in the evening, when you come back, maybe her mother, the person who is hosting you, they cook something for you. So again, the Radisson versus this is different because you will have this experience, which you will carry forward as a memory. And that's the whole idea of experience economy. And for people who in the audience who want the rigor of it, this is one standard model which was created by Joseph and Gilmore, and here's a link down below. But I don't want to dwell into it too much. I just want to tell the basic rhythm is that you have commodities. Through commodities you make goods. Through goods you deliver services, and on top of services you stage an experience. So you could have as well in the movie theater just shown them the movie, but the reason you give them services because you want uh, three phenomena to happen. Just look at this yellow box. There are three things which staging an experience does to you. It makes it memorable, personalized, and it reveals your things over a duration of time. Now, then COVID struck, all of us, the whole travel industry, Airbnb changed, Now, this is a very interesting slide where you can see that this is the latest version of Airbnb. There's no travel happening, but they have used the same experience concept and look at all these, online services available. You can tarot read. I particularly like these couple in yellow shirt. They look very jovial. They must be offering some of their experiences, and uh, or if you're a fashionista, there are these things available. So important thing to observe is watch very closely. Doesn't this look like in an uncanny way like how today a Udemy or a edX would be? So there is some kind of a convergence happening toward that kind of a form. So in my next slide, I'll show you, this is how Udemy looks like, I mean, it has, don't you see the same frequency and vibration of actually giving a course with a lot of excitement, a lot of an experience built in. So that's the basic premise of the experience economy. And it is very relevant to us as L&D professionals to be aware of this phenomena happening outside. Now, this is one of the slides which probably I would say, even if you forget everything else, this will be my takeaway to the audience here. And this I have titled as the chasm. And it kind of matches with Dr. Kurani that talked about the inside-outside theory. Maybe not in the full spirit of it, but somehow I could relate. So on the left-hand side, you have this personal world, and we are so enriched. You have this Google, so you wake up in the morning, you search for, you play golf, so you were searching for some of the games, and you find there. Then you, after a while, you go open your LinkedIn and you make connects with people. You maybe there's a consultant who is approaching you, and then who are your first level connections. Second, there's a huge vibrant network which you can tap into at times, not every moment, but it's available to you. And then you go to your favorite social engagement site. There is a community. Maybe you use Reddit. Some of you are using Facebook, Instagram. Some of you are reading or writing on Medium. So there is a branding, personal branding. There's a need for leaving a legacy, and you go there and you do something, and with the hope that you are contributing to a community and you're part of something bigger. And when the day ends, like for me at least, Netflix is where I take the respite, and you go there, and then you can choose. It auto recommends you content, and which, since you watch Friends, maybe you want to watch this now. But the chasm is this: when you come to this glorious corporate world, few things are at top, But let me ask you, where is your Google? Which is there a Google there for you, which can look at your documents related to your company and can give you the same kind of a responses fast enough? Do you have a LinkedIn kind of a network? I think that's the most important thing. We are living, there was a book by Samuel Huntington about Clash of Civilization, and the basic essence was that Afghanistan and America both may be living in 2020, but Afghanistan is like the 1980s or 1960s version of America, so there is a clash. So in corporate also, not all parts are at 2020. Some are still 1980s, some are 1960, and you need to spot them. For example, to me, the most underserved is this talent network. So you may know because there may be a business directory of all titles, but you do you really know who has what skill? Is that documented in a certain way? Maybe not, and that is where this LinkedIn kind of effect is missing. And yeah, so with this, let me try and address with this context of experience economy, the chasm that you have. Imagine this space is available to you in parts, slowly over time into corporate. You will have the same kind of effectiveness that you may be seeing in your personal space. So what is LXP? LXP, the basic sauce, the secret sauce for LXP is that it fixes the chasm for you. And the secret sauce is that, like what Google did, they just brought brought all the web pages which are straight across internet and connected them. And then there was LinkedIn. What did they do? There were people spread across with their profile resume. They kind of connected them. And then same thing happened with Facebook. There were social profiles of people. There are certain hobbies, their photographs. They connected. So LXP is based on the same paradigm that if you can get all the assets that you hold, your e-learning content that you have, all the competency you have, all the curated content, you may not own it, but some of the good links that are around, if you can bring them together. Can you bring all the documents, those PDF, legacy document, videos, this webinar we are recording, can we take them and put it in a box? And then, the product company shakes that box and gives you different kind of experiences, which I will talk about, in the later part of when we talk about it. So probably I'll.
Very insightful once again, Prasoon. Very well put, in fact. That definitely is very, very thought igniting. And in fact, I especially like the idea of the analogy that you use, that every company is now trying to be an experience company. Bang on in that. Now, for those of you joining us now, warm welcome to all of you once again. I would now like to draw everyone's attention to some key data. Now, estimates by the National Skill Development Corporation reveal that by 2022, the BFSI sector in India will be poised to offer 1.6 million jobs. While around 20% of these would be new roles, nearly 50% would be existing jobs that require reskilling on account of developments in technology. Mr. Kurane, how do you map the skills of employees across the organization? Do you have a specific skill matrix in place which can be referred to while planning for training, or maybe for resources to be aligned for any project? Over to you, sir.
Yeah. So we do have a repository of skills which are mapped across, the different units of a bank, and a bank actually is a very good example of many of these practices, because to me it is like 3-4 organizations rolled into one, and therefore the entire business of inventorying skills and making it available, it becomes a very dynamic and I would say very challenging kind of a exercise. So what I mean by that is there is the traditional bank as all of us know it, the retail where you talk about the brick and mortar kind of a bank, but which is slowly getting kind of replaced or displaced by a more digital kind of an offering. Then there is the operations, which is like, for example, it's like a DPO or a KPO of any other standalone company. So we have skill sets over there. The point I'm trying to make is that if you slice and dice across the bank, the kind of like a honeycomb structure, and if you find that in each cell, the kind of skills which are required, they're very unique, and some of them are not say transferable across to different parts of the bank, but some definitely are. But I think in the context of the the webinar today, one of the most important matrices of the skills being mapped is that where are the technology skills residing, and what is the kind of replaceability or transferability of these skills. I think that is becoming very important, because for example, Mr. Prasoon told us that how you can kind of bring all the learning, the knowledge part, various things into a common platform, and using the Google example. So just for information, we are actually trying to do something like that in our HCM department. So on a product side, we have something which we call as the Yes Genie. So let me explain that. Is it is able to map a customer across all his transactions, and the most important thing is that it recommends what they call as the next best actions, NBA. That means the relationship manager actually has got live data to figure out what is the next best advice I can give to my customer, bank customer. Now we want to exactly replicate that in HR. So the point is that whenever we are referring to an employee, either it is in the discussion with the business head, we are looking at some kind of a succession planning exercise, we are looking at some kind of a new unit being set up, and we are trying to kind of manage with people from within the organization. This HCM Genie would be able to give a 360-degree, a complete holistic view of the employees and cutting across all possible data points of an employee's existence in the organization. See, some of these are very obvious when you talk about the training which they have done, the skills which they have sort of got, certifications which they have got. But there are far more data points, which are there about an employee, which actually, if you build up that image from that kind of a data structure, you're able to predict also that what is the kind of a future assignment a person can take, what are the kind of skill sets which he has or has displayed. In other words, we have to track the employee on a 24/7 and 360-degree basis. Of course, I'm not talking about invasion of privacy over here. I'm just saying that we have to make available all possible data points about an employee such that people decisions can be made in a much more realistic and a holistic fashion. I will give you an example of this, which we are practicing. It should be of some interest to the listeners and the panel also. So all of you would have heard that many organizations are adopting the garage model for innovation in an organization. Now, what we have actually done is that in our premises here in our head office, we've actually created a garage space. So garage actually looks like a garage. It has got tires, it has got an old engine, it has got chain, pulley blocks, and all that. And employees who are working on these projects across products and across departments, they are actually encouraged to go ideate in that space. And there are certain rules which have been put in place over there, that hierarchies are suspended once you go inside that. Everybody has to wear a kind of a apron or a work dress, which obliterates all hierarchies. The point is that we track who are the people who are going and volunteering for these garages, and then we are able to give them specific technology inputs so that they become contributors for the particular project. Now, why I mentioned this garage example is, to us, this is an example of matching skill sets, mindsets, and giving people learning experiences and opportunities in a very defined and tangible manner, so that the bank benefits from this. This is the agile deployment kind of a technology or the approach which we are using over here. Now, obviously, all parts of the bank are not amenable to this kind of approach. Your core banking, for example, may not be amenable to an agile deployment. But there are so many different product experiences and customer interfaces which actually can benefit from this kind of an approach. So if you look at, there is a traditional way of mapping skill sets. So your skill matrices and all which are there, those also have a certain utility. But I think the important thing is that the ability to map skills and abilities on an ongoing basis, from a employee experience perspective, actually that makes it far more relevant, because we need the right person at the right place now. Not, there isn't time for too much of planning and all that. That's a little bit of a traditional approach. We need to find the best person now. Okay, so I keep talking about the present ready. So it's the present ready organization and the present ready people. So I think if you ask me that the whole approach to mapping of skills, the whole approach of creating a repository of skills, and more importantly, being able to predict from the comprehensive view of an employee that what he or she will be able to contribute, and moving those people to the required projects, I think that gives the edge to the organization, the competitive edge to the organization.
I presume your take on it.
Yep, sure. So again, I'll just kind of show a few slides covering that. Now, what I plan to do now is that I'm going to show, kind of go from 10,000 feet to, let's say, 1,000 feet now, and show a couple of things which actually are there in LXP and in line with what Mr. Kurane talked about, the skill database and how in various ways people are using it. So the first thing is that collection of skill, it has been made much easier now, because there's so many ways in which you can collect. Now, for example, this is one kind of a screen, just one of the ways, where somebody on the left hand side chooses the domain or the capability he belongs to, and then on the right hand side, he kind of digs into the kind of capability he already has. So once he knows that, he kind of marks those competencies, their capability
Prashant,
level.
I think we are not able to see your screen.
Oh, is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so, oh yeah, all right. So, okay. I'm assuming now
Now we
everybody's able
can.
to see. All right,
Now
good.
we can.
Yeah. So anyways, you're not missed much. This screen was about that I was talking about, where you kind of choose a capability across a big repository, and it's a dynamic repository. So as if there is a skill which is not mentioned, you kind of get to know about it, and then you go ahead and mark the level of competency you are at, and then there is a whole validation built around. So if somebody marks at expert level, then they may have to submit some documents. So that way, in this whole flow, there's a little bit of checks, maker checker, checks and balances are built into it. And when that happens, suddenly you have this connectivity between skills, something that we call as a skill graph. And then people kind of latch onto this various skill, and that becomes a mathematical problem which then AI can solve in terms of finding out the best allocations, best clustering. But those are the buzzword. But let me take you in to the people managing the learning. What is the outcome for you when I shake the box? What happens really? So the first thing you get is very obvious, very logical. Since you have this entire skill repository, then across the competencies, you can see, how many are at level 1, level 2, level 3, or how many level you may have. And then you get to know what is your gap. So for example, there is a certain competency, and if you have 25 people still short, you have a way. And there are two ways. One is the way wherein you use sourcing. So imagine you find out that in UiPath, which is a RPA tool, there is no resourcing and there are projects lined up. You just press a button, request resourcing, and it can hook into your, the resourcing system and kind of give them an alert. So there's a possibility of, this kind of giving out clues to other systems. And then second thing is that very logical. If you have people of level 3, they can very well train people of level 2. And this LXP by its very design allows you to do that very easily, because you could have done it offline, but that is where the beauty of this kind of tools are. It becomes very easy for you to kind of cross propagate, competency across the level. So the two approaches are there, and this is an awesome one, which is just like LinkedIn. So imagine you were looking for somebody in the cybersecurity capability within your organization. So imagine these there were total 6 candidates and 4 are flagged over here. And you may find that maybe it was Vijay Shankar who was actually into cybersecurity, but then maybe Manohar was there, who was actually an AI guy, but he did a certification and kind of built his portfolio on cybersecurity. So you may be in the traditional world, you may not be even aware that there is somebody who exists like that. Now, this is at least available to you. Now, nowhere I mean to say you press connect button and this guy will surely join your team. But what's the point of living in dark when you just don't know anything? At least here you have an access to what kind of skill are there. So the guy may join you for the project work, or he may just be temporarily available to impart knowledge to some of the guys you are looking for. So there's a huge value. I mean, there's no point in darkness. Let they say, let there be light. So at least there is a data available to you, which different companies can use different way. Not every one can leverage it to the max, but it's there. Just like Google is always there for you to use it when you need it. Then you can do things like project resourcing. For example, you can put the entire description of your project, and the system will mine out the keywords like a resume miner, and it will map it against the capability you have, and it will flag you a couple of people who are actually matching that kind of capability around you, like in LinkedIn, like a first level, second level, third level connection, and you can make use of that. And this is, I think, one of the cream thing, the personalization of learning path. So Mr. Kurani talked about that, all these models that were in HR practice, which was taught, they are relevant. There's certain element in it which is timeless, but they also require an upgrade, So all the Toyota model and everything is there, but it requires an upgrade. Now, what these modern systems do is that earlier, in earlier model, you would only restrict to the current role, because that role was good enough. The job description was good enough. Now job description itself is fluid. So it is a function of three things. The system looks at your current role, what you are. It knows what kind of skills and what kind of contents are available to kind of take care of skilling need. Because I also know your skill gap, the system knows the skill gap. It is able to give you those trainings which will take you from level 1 to level 2. That is where the second function, which takes care of a skill gap. And the third function, which is so much of a modern era problem of this fast pace, if there's a future trajectory and you want to kind of upskill your people to be ready, future ready, then you can inject in a small amount, a proportional amount, maybe 10%. You can instruct the engine, and it will keep pushing them a little bit of courses on basics of AI and RPs or whatever you have. And that way, see, you are kind of bringing in the Netflix kind of feature in your world. You are given a personalized kind of learning basis the assets you have. There could be curated assets which you can pull in to map to kind of take care of some of the gaps you have in your organization. So that is very big piece of personalization of learning which is possible in an LXP. And gamification is a well-known thing. Everybody knows it, because see, the fact is, if you put some learning path in front of somebody, I mean, it's not so fluid that people will jump to it, you know. So essentially gamification is that behavioral dynamics which encourages, which creates competition, which basically works on FOMO, because you want to see your name, you don't want to be seen as not doing these courses in front of your management. So there's a little bit of gamification dynamics which accelerates the process. But yeah, it's a difficult one. To make somebody learn is never a very easy process, but this just helps a little bit. So I guess that is probably some of my points around how the skill graph is made use of effectively.
Hmm. Sure, Prasoon. Quite interesting, in fact. The entire LXP game is very, very interesting. In fact, well, personalization certainly is the key for the future as well as for the workplaces. Now, aligning well with the discussion that we've had so far, uh, a 2017 Gallup study said that the top performing organizations in employee engagement almost double their chances of success as compared with the companies with low employee engagement. Mr. Kirani, your thoughts around it?
I think the statistics speak for themselves, and at the end of the day, it's the the knowledge capital which actually gives you the dividend. So I think there's absolutely no doubt that more the training and learning and development inputs, the organization benefits. But having said that, just take on something from what Mr. Prasoon said in his last part of the conversation was, how do you actually make this L&D content reach the employees? Because it's all fine. I mean, this is like a axiomatic statement that people they have skill gaps, and therefore they need to be taught, and therefore somebody has to deliver the training, and they need to imbibe the training and then apply it. I mean, if it was as simple as that, I think things would be far better, easier. But if you ask me, a couple of things which we have kind of learned and tried to practice, which may have used to other people, I'll just share them with you. First is that, in today's context, the so-called millennial employee, and that is a term which has been often misused, but let us use it for what it is worth. And some of the characteristics of this generation of employees, I think there are a lot of characteristics which otherwise portrayed negatively are actually very, very positive opportunities. So people say that the workforce of today is selfish. I say, what is wrong in that? If they are selfish and they are interested in their own self-development, this becomes a huge opportunity to tap into that particular need of a person. Second, I think, is people today are very, very purpose driven. Now, why I'm mentioning these may apparently woolly concepts is that if we are able to bring some of this down into our L&D structure and delivery, this entire business of reskilling and upskilling people, I think the outcome, the acceptability, the conversion of training into action is far more effective. So some of the things that we have tried to do in our bank is that employee engagement to us it has to be meaningful engagement, and one of the most effective ways of engaging employees is through the L&D medium, because rather than some cute activities being done by HR department, L&D kind of an engagement is very, very relevant to the person if you are able to position that in a manner that it addresses his or her need. This is one point. Second thing is that there has to be accountability for L&D outcomes and delivery, and that's something which we try to do, because if you do it like a charitable business, that we have put up a stand, anybody wants come and pick up a cup of whatever tea or coffee and go away, I don't think there is any value to that. So the access to L&D has to be somewhat aspirational. People have to feel that, yes, if I'm going to undergo this training, it's going to add value to me. And there should be a buzz among employees saying, oh, I have undergone this training. You haven't undergone as yet. You know, it's like people saying, and that's exactly what happens. People say, oh, you're not watched this series on Netflix. I mean, you're living in yesterday, man. You are living in a stone age. Why aren't you on Netflix? Somebody said, I don't watch Netflix. Oh God, are you even alive? So, you know, we have to bring some of these external kind of trends into our L&D setup. Make it very, very aspirational, make it very, very engaging, and people should be able to see the outcomes, the positive outcomes of the L&D kind of activities. Now, for instance, you know, we have recently started something on the lines of TED Talks. We realized that within a bank, let's say if you look at our digital banking offerings, there is a hell of a lot of very interesting underlying technology, which, you know, the technology minded people would love to kind of go deeper into. But if you present this as a product presentation, people will say boring, you're just trying to propagate your product. But if you just strip it off that part and say, look, do you understand that when we are talking about API banking, what does API banking actually mean from a technology perspective? So we are going to schedule a TED Talk kind of a thing, and where our internal expert will come and talk about it. You know, the whole complexion of that event changes. Then the talk becomes, oh, you did not attend that talk on the digital banking API. And earlier we would be chasing people to say that, you know, please go and sign up for this, you know, webinar. But we want to make it aspirational. We want to make sure that the number of seats are lesser than the people who are aspiring. People have to kind of want to come into that training. And then if we deliver value and we engage with people, I think the entire purpose of L&D, the entire purpose of engagement, and, you know, the skilling of people and all of that, it becomes very, very contextual. It's beneficial to the employee. It's also beneficial to the organization. In a nutshell, I think we have to again go back outside and see. And I like that slide on the chasm, you know, where you say we have a Google on one side and you have the corporate on the other side, and there's a mismatch in the whole life experience outside the corporate and inside the corporate. So if we are able to, you know, replicate some of the ease of learning and training, I think that's fantastic. So I'll just give you one example. The lockdown forced me to do unwanted cooking. I mean, I had to do it because if I had to survive with no cooks and no maids and all that. So instantly you go to YouTube and then you find whatever you want to cook there. Okay. So my message to our L&D team is that we should become the YouTube of equivalent. People say, okay, I need to learn something right now. I'm facing a difficulty in doing my job. Instantly go to, you know, YesTube, which is what we call, instead of YouTube, we call it YesTube in our bank. And he or she should be able to find a video. They should be able to find content which instantly addresses their problem on hand. And that is exactly the way. It's just FYI, last piece, we are trying to actually incentivize our L&D team, and I think some of them may be also watching this webinar, that, you know, potentially your rewards would depend on the likes you get on your training videos which you post on the L&D portal. So it has to be instant gratification. So as every guy would say, okay, please do like, subscribe, and hit the subscription button. People should hit the subscription button with the learning video. If you are able to do this, then I think the whole thing becomes far more engaging.
No, very true. So Michael, I think Rene brought this very interesting.
Sorry, just one last thing, Ankit. As I told you, I had a little bit of a hard stop, so I have to travel to another part of the office to attend a function. So with the permission of everybody here, I'll have to take a slightly early exit.
No problem.
Sure, Mr. Kirane. We understand the implications. Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us for the webinar today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Kirane.
No, I think Michael, I think this question around the millennials and their response on, I mean, a lot depends on the content. So what have you seen? What has been the finding from Articulate point of view and the kind of things that are there in content today, which makes it more relevant to the millennials? What kind of things go into the content to make it more sticky with the millennials? I think you're muted. Is it?
I
Sorry.
think Michael is, yeah.
The biggest thing at the moment we're seeing is diversity. So a lot of organisations really factoring diversity in their training, how they produce it. Also accessibility, and in fact, Articulate invest in a lot of resources and money in building accessibility tools so you can build better accessibility training. So they're probably two areas in particular. The last 12 months we've seen a big lift in people wanting that kind of training. In terms of some of the content in terms of assets, even our own assets, like we've got content library. Content library gives you, a ton of videos, a ton of images, characters. We've had a lot more diverse characters that people can choose now. So that's a big thing in all the training that we're putting together. And a lot of big organizations are demanding it. They're not just asking, it's nice to have, they're actually demanding that in our tools. So we've put in a lot of focus on that. So I would say that's the biggest thing, probably in the last 12 months, in particular this year, that type of training.
Sure.
Did you want to elaborate on that, or?
I mean, that in fact raises another question as to what all kinds of content can be uploaded on LXP.
Sure, I'll take you across that. I'll need a screen share if I may get it. Let me present this part. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me talk about what kind of content goes into an LXP. So let me kind of zoom into that part only. Now, basically, one is that I'll go to that part of what content, but let me cover very quickly, like in 30 seconds. There's a concept of expert discovery. So you can actually discover expert and through this system, because an expert is a person who's got a level 3 expertise in a certain skill. And then you kind of give this guy a microsite. These experts are generally people who are very good, but they're not may not be so vocal. They may not want to come. So you can discover and kind of encourage them to form a microsite. Microsite is nothing but a repository of all the knowledge that this person can now kind of a subspace for himself, like a corner office of some sort for this guy in the digital space, where he can put his knowledge, his courses, his blogs, videos, and that creates a lot of brand. And this works very well for millennials also, because it's not about personal branding. And then there's an example of a cybersecurity microsite, which is created by an expert of a given organization. So this brings in that Facebook kind of an engagement. And now let's quickly touch upon micro learnings, because the dark truth is that only 24 minutes per week are really available of the green attention span for learning purposes. So you require to bite size your learning. And that is where, again, there are a lot of tricks and techniques that Articulate users make use of to really create a very lean learning. And then you can kind of host this learning basis the recommendation engine. Now here comes the best part, probably the creamiest part of LXP, which takes you leaps ahead, which is what Ankit, you also talked about, the power of what kind of documents, webinar, video, audio, how do you handle them, what kind of document can go. It's a very different paradigm. So the way LXP works is that it takes all your podcasts, all your multimedia, documents, PowerPoint, PDF. So much webinars have started happening because of COVID. Everybody's recording over Zoom. Very interesting thing is documents are like people. People age. They may become irrelevant, but they're still wise. So same way, these documents they may be dated, but they have still information. These regulatory documents you may have, which still may be having this 500-page document, may still have a lot of important things to throw at. So the whole technology is around taking all your content, putting it again in that box, which reads the document, understand, does its AI, its natural language processing. Then you can also tag, just to assess the whole process of AI. You can also tag these documents such that at the end of it, LXP gives you two features. One is it becomes Google-like, because again, remember what Google did was just corrected things which were documents. So with the Google-like feature, you can just simply go ahead and search for certain information. You can look for example, see, you are searching for trade finance in your company. It flags out that there is a document by the name Global Financial System. And not only that, it showed you the page number also. So those are the kind of things LXPs give you. They can actually point you to a document, saving a lot of your time and acting like a, some certain kind of a genie or a performance support system. This is probably our company's most favorite innovation, wherein all the webinars that you have in your system, they are taken. The funny thing about video is that such an irony that videos are the most visual things, but they are completely opaque when it comes to searching. Many times you must have gone to YouTube and you watched the video and you're just trying to figure out where was that spot where this dialogue was said. It's a difficult problem. Try it. It is going to never be easy. So that is what the deep search part of the LXP solves. You put in a keyword and it tells you where the utterance of that keyword. For example, you're seeing this webinar. You may want to know when did Prasoon talked about that chasm. So you can just punch in chasm, and wherever I uttered chasm, those timelines will appear to you. You click them, you start from there. So kind of opens up the search light within a content. And then you have a chat bot based approach. Remember the other prong we had, this word? The same thing you can experience through a chatbot kind of a concept. Where you can go and ask the system, can you recommend me some courses? Or maybe interactively, it can take you to a particular course. So I think those are the dimensions available, Ankit.
Sure, Prasoon. That's quite insightful again. Well, my next question would be to Michael as Prasoon in this case. Does it hold true that LXP will actually make other learning platforms like some of the SOPs, LMS, and other repositories obsolete? I know we briefly touched upon it, but if you could just give a small gist around it.
So, okay, now see, there is no competition, it is a very different kind of arrangement. So there is no competition between, for example, LMS can work in consonance with, an LXP system. LXP approach, as you could see, Ankit, was very different. It's all about get me all the data and I can kind of crunch it and give you a memorable thing. And then, but what gives you an edge in an LXP, apart from the AI part, is also the quality of content, to be honest, because AI is sometimes too much glorified. What I have seen successful is that, let's say the kind of content you make on Articulate, the kind of visual appeal, because that's your first foot in the door. I mean, if your contents don't look good, then whatever content you may have, and as Mr. Kurane was also saying, the whole difficult part is how do you tempt these guys to do the content, So the whole deal of these systems, these SOPs, finally the real acceptance happened when they are really well designed, they're short enough, they're brief. So I think that's where I see LXP to be there, and it is the future because it's all experience based now. Yeah. And Michael, if you have
That's
anything
one.
to add.
Michael, please.
Oh, I would agree with all that totally. In fact, the last few years they talk about byte learning there's other names they use as well, but that's been really popular the last few years in a lot of countries. So I would definitely support that.
Sure, sure, Michael. I think that's wonderful. I think what Prasoon also covered is it's pretty much the same. They often say that content is the king, and Prasoon and Michael, you exactly touched the right chords there. Now, I would quickly, because of the paucity of time that we have for the Q&A session, I would just want to jump on to some interesting questions from the audience. My first
Sure.
question to you will be to Michael. How can Articulate help HR professionals who don't know coding?
Oh, that's a great question. So this is the thing with Articulate. Our tools are designed for everyone. So we have Articulate 360, which is an all-in-one solution. We have award-winning authoring apps. So we've got Storyline 360. That looks like PowerPoint. So if you know PowerPoint, you already have a very familiar look and feel. And we've got Rise 360, which is in the cloud. So you do author in the cloud, nothing to install on your computer. It is so easy. You just drag and drop and select what we call blocks. Really easy to use. We've got templates. So we've got workplace templates, compliance templates. These are polished, full-blown courses with really good outlines. The content is really placeholder content. So you just would go in and change the content. You can replace the photos. So we've made it really easy for beginners. We would encourage you to try it. I mean, we give 60-day trial access, which is fully functional. I mean, that's one of the reasons our tools are really popular, is that they're really easy to use. And we get asked this all the time. People get thrown into building courses, they get told, have a look at Articulate's product, and before long, they're really into it. I mentioned earlier the eLearning Heroes website. Have to look at that. That is an amazing website. It's got a ton of resources. Even if you're new to e-learning, you will find it there. I mean, it's free. In terms of just your skills to learn, there's so many resources there. So you don't need to be a coder. You don't need to know anything about coding. We do all the hard work. We make it a lot easy for authors just to really concentrate on the content.
Great, great. My next question to Prasoon. Prasoon, this specifically comes from a technology standpoint. Would you have any short strategy to drive engagement for the learning and development initiatives?
So when you say sure shot, which means with 100% guarantee, right? Like a back guarantee, you know. So I
Yes.
wish life was, even for me, how my day goes is not sure shot, and this must be true for all of us. We plan a certain day, but you know, attending the problem, the idea is we use a method of goal programming. You don't require sure shot. What you require is the right framework is this: that you go to a gym and imagine for a moment you are a guy who's not a gymnast, who's not a regular gymmer. What you have to take care is not doing all the tools, but your body builds up. You do it slowly. So you go maybe just pull up a 10 kg. So the only short start strategy is where you keep looking at how your organization is, what parts it is reacting well to, and then just keep reacting back. It's just like somebody going to gym and saying, can I become a six-pack guy? You know, it depends on so many things, you know. So yeah, some people will.
Yes.
There's no short
Well,
here, but
that's majorly all about introspection in this case. Well, my next question to Michael would be, while there is a lot of focus on how learning content would be delivered, any specific points on how it should be formatted and designed?
Formatted and designed. Look, I think it really depends on the audience. I know that there's a ton of material about, the do's and don'ts when you're creating your content, but everything I've ever learned from industry experts, and we've got industry experts at the company, they always talk about using relevant images. They always talk about making it laser specific. So not to have a lot of additional messy content, just keep it very specific to the point, to engage the audience. That's very important, or engage the learner. We talk about getting the learner to touch the screen as many times as they can. So we don't want a situation where they're just sitting and in the old days with PowerPoint, just clicking away. We want to pause, we want to prompt them with a question or a problem, and depending on their answer, we'll give them immediate feedback, and then they can go through a learning path based on that feedback, and from that they should be picking up more incentive to continue and to be excited to complete it. But I would say, yeah, that would probably be the big thing, is to engage the audience or the learner, engage that learner to participate and make it enjoyable.
Very important, very, very significant, yes. My next question to you, Prasoon, would be, and this would apparently be the last question for this roundtable. Prasoon, so the audience wants to know that if you can share any practical examples of where artificial intelligence is being used successfully in learning and development.
so I think there are various places. I think it's not even a rare thing now. Some of the use cases around us have been around the LXP that we showed you was all the work which is actually being done and deployed at client location. They're all real work which is, of course, some of the slides we have put it in a way so that it doesn't leak out everything. But for example, all your recommendation engine, the skill database that you saw, these are happening. So these are the things which are, I would say, the low-hanging fruits, because you can immediately get that database. You never had the database, so it's like a very deprived situation. So if you make the database, a lot of value starts coming out to you. And then there are fancier dimensions, things where you want system to become almost like your boss or a very knowledgeable system, it takes time. So my answer would be that even AI is just a word. AI is almost as equivalent word like somebody says software. AI is just type of a software, but there are more applied things today, and there are few futuristic things. Applied ones are chatbots, applied ones are recommendation engines, applied ones which are proven and applied. The fancier ones are where you can make predictions accurately. Those things are still, quality of results are, or you want to make a complete replica of Google kind of a relevance. It's an effort. Those problems are harder. So yeah, so numerous cases, and somebody can refer to us for the cases we worked on, and we can definitely talk more.
Absolutely. I'm sure this addresses perfectly fine to the audience. Well, though we've covered a few of your questions, anything specific that you would like to cover here, Prasoon, Michael?
So Michael, do you have any?
Probably last thoughts is that, I would encourage, we get this a lot where people are thrown into building e-learning and they get a little worried about, their expertise. I would just encourage people to take the step. Like I said earlier, we give people 60 days to trial our products. So generally it's more than enough time to really take advantage of what we've got on offer, those templates, the content library, which is all these pre-built assets that they can access. So I would just ask them to take that step. And whether you like our products or not, the eLearning Heroes website, if you want to learn anything about e-learning, that is a must.
Yep.
Great.
And
Prasoon, your thoughts?
yeah, so I have a small story to tell, kind of highlighting the one of the key things which I want our audience to go back with. So this is a very interesting fish story going these days. That there was a lady who was making fish for her daughter. She was baking a fish, so she cut off the head and cut off the tail and just put it in the baking pan. And this girl comes and asks, "Mama, why do you cut the head and tail?" So she says, "I don't know. I mean, that's how Babika used to do. That's the word for grandma." So she was not satisfied. She goes to the Babika, this Czechoslovakian word for grandmother. And then she asks, "Grandma, why did you used to cut the fish this way, the head and the tail, and put it? There's so much of wastage. Why do you do that?" She was like, "I don't know. I mean, it's my mother used to do that." So they go to great grandmother. Great grandmother was lying on the bed, pretty, bedridden. She was asking, "Okay, why did you used to do that? Cut the fish?" And everybody expected a huge response, some wisdom. She says that, "Oh, my pan used to be very small." So the point is that there are a lot of routines in the L&D domain. There are a lot of things we are doing. They're assuming this is how it's to be done. They all need to be challenged. Is my takeaway that I would want people to take. Keep challenging the routines. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's wonderful, wonderful, Prasoon. In fact, they say it for a reason that should always challenge the status quo, right? Well, thank you once again to all our guests for making this an insightful session. And last but not the least, many thanks to our audience as well. I wish you all a happy weekend and a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
for a great posting. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Bye.